I'm going to try and record a video on motion tween. I do have a little bit of ambient noise in this room, so hopefully it's not too bad. So I'm going to use the simple ball bouncing, sort of a classic exercise. You could start out with an oval tool, and I'm going to click and drag by putting my finger on the shift key to create an oval. So I've added an item to the stage, and it's interesting because things that you draw inside of Animate can be some combination, by the way, of raster and vector, and it further differentiates the stroke or the outline from the fill, so they can be separated quite easily. We can even select portions of it and go back and forth really between things that are primarily raster and vector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this item as it exists here, and I'm going to go underneath modify, and I'm going to say convert this to symbol. Okay. And I'm going to give this symbol a name. I'm going to call it ball. Very simple name. And it says what type of symbol. There are different types of symbols that you can add. There's a movie clip, a button, or a graphic. For those just beginning in the animation, the graphic is probably the simplest. Movie clips allow us to take an actual chunk of timeline and make a symbol out of that. But for right now, we're just going to do the symbol. I'm going to click OK. And you see it had a registration point or a reference point around which we work. So the first thing I want to do is do a simple bouncing ball. I'm going to have my ball right here in frame 1. I have my timeline activated. And then I'm going to pick intervals that I want to add my keyframes to. So I'm going to insert underneath timeline a keyframe. And at that frame, I'm going to put where I kind of want the bouncing ball to go. So I'm going to pick something like this. Probably... yeah, so it touches the bottom there. And then I'm going to add another keyframe. Insert, timeline, keyframe. Okay, so we've got sort of a transit of the ball now from this point at 10, and I can decide where I want it to go. Maybe to something like this at this point in the timeline. Then we'll add another keyframe, maybe a little shorter. And then I'll take where the transit of this ball will go. Maybe something like that. And then one last keyframe. So I'll get out to a metered point. I'll insert another keyframe in the timeline. And here we'll have the ball sort of exit. Not really following the laws of physics there, but that's okay. So if I come down here and I hit rewind and play, you'll see that for each keyframe, the ball kind of registers on the screen where it's at. So I'll take the timeline all the way back to the beginning, and what I want to do is have tween frames. This goes back to basic animation in the early days of animation, where a key animator would maybe draw every 30th frame or every 50th frame or every 100th frame, and sort of underlings would do the in-between or tween framing. So what I'm going to do is do a classic motion tween first. I'll select the first item where the ball is, and then I'll select the next keyframe by shift clicking, and that'll select everything in between. And then underneath insert, I'm going to go down to where it says classic tween, classic tween. So it's sort of an old school way of doing things, and you'll notice when you do a classic tween, it kind of puts an arrow in the timeline to show the tweened keyframes. So I can do that again with the next two keyframes. I can do insert classic tween, and we can see the ball bounce sort of happening like this until we get to the last one where it exits out of the stage. So I'm going to go ahead and click playback, and you can kind of see the real basics of classic tweening for animation. Now I do need to tell you that there's a lot more that we could work on as far as getting this animation to look real. For instance, as we kind of go through and the ball is at the points where it impacts the bottom, we could actually kind of squish that ball just slightly. So we can come up here and kind of, just squish it a little bit. And then we can add things called easement and acceleration to it to try and imitate the physics of the ball. But for a real sort of good start at getting down the classic tweens, hopefully this video will help you out.